So welcome back to Boys on Film. TV reviews on Monday, uploaded, and movie reviews on Friday. It's TV today. Raj is here.
Yes.
Black Mirror, Charlie Brooker series that has been so popular right from the start.
Ever since Netflix took it over, it's just gone straight up into the right direction.
Because it has changed. I mean, it's always been dark, but I think it has that wider appeal now, doesn't it? It's obviously, appealing to more people. And it has that, obviously, that American feel.
Yes.
And a bigger budget.
Yes. It's still got a little British flavour in it.
If you don't know Black Mirror, and I guess that most people do, this is a sci-fi fantasy horror series of different episodes that are usually different in the story, but they're all threaded by this kind of dystopian future, nightmarish, technology dominating world, but for the wrong reasons. It's kind of nightmarish, isn't it?
I like to describe Black Mirror as a series that sort of tells us what can go wrong if we don't pay attention to how we use technology. This is going to be totally off topic, but in Justice League, Wonder Woman describes technology as without heart and without soul. It just can go wrong just like any other evil in the world.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
I love that. I love that you're throwing Wonder Woman into it.
Anytime, any place.
We're going to split this video into two because there's so much to talk about, because obviously this is 6 episodes in this series and they're all very complex. I have to say though, I was quite disappointed. I've not seen every episode. I've seen 5 of the 6 and I'm disappointed.
I've seen 5 of the 6 as well, and I'm pleasantly pleased, but could have had a bit more. Actually, it wasn't, in my opinion, not as good as season 3.
Yeah.
But it was exactly what I was expecting for season 4.
I just think it's running out of steam. I think there's only so much you can do with that theme of technology and what could go wrong, and I think they're getting to the point where you can't really push it anymore.
I kind of agree with you, because there was one episode where I was like, this is exactly like season 3.
They're becoming quite samey,
there are
aren't
a
they?
couple episodes which are like, it's the same sort of concept. Interesting that they can use that concept again and tell a different story, but maybe not too far off with what you're saying about running out of steam.
Yeah. Should we start with the first episode, USS Callister?
Yes.
And I'm guessing that you're probably a fan of this episode because it's quite Star Trek in theme. It's like a parody, isn't it, almost, of Star Trek?
Surprisingly, Phil, no.
Oh.
I do not like Star Wars. I do not like Star Trek. Although I can totally appreciate the direction they went with this film, and I know why they chose this as the first sort of episode to show first, because it had a bit more lightheartedness to it. I liked how they took the Star Trek and kind of flipped it on its head a bit, and it was quite cute, and there was some quite funny moments with the CGI aliens and stuff, and you're like, oh my god, Black Mirror's changed so much. Yeah. But it's kind of like they had an opportunity to do one big budget episode.
Yeah.
And you could tell they kind of threw all the money in.
It was quite tongue-in-cheek, wasn't it? I loved it for that it didn't take itself too seriously.
Yeah.
Jesse Plemons from Breaking Bad and Fargo, he was one of the starring roles, or one of the main characters. Yeah,
if you haven't seen it, it's loosely based on Star Trek. Tech company being run by 2 people. The CTO has a bit of a chip on his shoulder because the CEO has basically stolen his technology and turned it into a business, and just like any other geek, he feels that like everyone disrespects him and walks all over him and doesn't quite get him or understand him.
Sits in his office quite a lot on his own.
Yeah, and fantasizes
scheming
about a world of Star Trek where he's Captain Kirk sitting in the commander's chair and, basically finds a way through his own technology to take DNA, convert that into digital clones of people, and upload them into this game / role-playing sort of story where he's the boss of everything. So the story takes place upon the USS Callister and is basically a Star Trek episode, and when people are starting to figure out, like, why am I here? And they figure out they're a digital clone and they start to rebel. Things start to go a bit funny.
I think it was one of the better episodes of the lot, actually.
It was. Like, I would actually watch that episode again. I thought it was cute. I think what they were trying to do with season 3, they start off strong with the first episode to hook you in, just like Nosedive, which is the first episode of the last season.
Yeah.
They really hook you in strong and be like, but they do have other stories to tell. It's definitely not the theme of the rest of the season. So if you've watched the first episode of USS Callister and are like, ooh, this is not for me, well, you can watch the other episode.
Arcangel. Now, I was shocked, first of all, because it was directed by Jodie Foster, and I thought it was the weakest of the series, or one of the weakest
I
of the
didn't
series.
think it was very strong either, to be honest with you. It's just kind of a concept we've seen before.
Yeah.
You know, people can watch you through your iPad, and
It was a retread, wasn't it? It
Yeah.
felt like a retread.
people getting fitted with, you know, devices where their eyes record everything. We saw that in season 3
Yeah.
already. Just basically another retelling of the same exact sort of story.
The idea was interesting, the fact that the mother was paying into an app or a piece of technology that is looking over her daughter, because I would imagine there are a lot of overprotective mothers that would buy an app like this, but obviously it backfired because she was seeing things she didn't want to see. Her daughter having sex and her daughter
taking drugs. Yeah.
It's that whole kind of idea of
What you don't know won't hurt you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I thought that was quite smart, but I just don't think it just felt a bit clunky to me.
I actually did not know this. Maybe this might be a bit controversial, but I didn't realize that Jodie Foster directed that episode until after I watched it. You know, in the end, seeing the young girl get in a truck with a truck driver, I was like, that's very un-Jodie Foster-like.
Yeah.
You know, and I know she likes telling stories about, you know, females overcoming obstacles and, you know, sexual misconduct and everything, but I just thought that for that, Jodie Foster to do that as sort of the end of that episode was very unlike her.
You see the mother with the daughter who is very young, I don't know, 3 or 4.
Yeah.
And then you see her going through her teenage years, and the mother
Does not age at all.
She doesn't age at all, and she's just wearing a different cardigan
Yeah.
to represent her age. But it just didn't look like an older woman wearing an older woman's cardigan. It just felt like it was a prop.
And really quite funny too, and speaking of the whole movie universe, like coming off the back of comments that Jodie Foster has made about comic book movies, you know, after she's just put out this piece of very mediocre episode of Black Mirror, I just thought it didn't really win any points for Jodie Foster. And I'm like, maybe she should have a think about what she says after she puts out a piece of film that's quite mediocre, actually.
It gets violent towards the end, but I don't think that was the most disturbing element of it. I thought the idea was the most disturbing element, the idea of being overprotective and seeing things you didn't want to see, which I think they should have developed more, as opposed to the violence at the end.
I'm sure when Jodie Foster put her card on the table, says, I want to direct an episode, they'd probably dropped everything and said, yeah, of course you can do anything you want.
Yeah.
But did they have a plan for the whole series? Did they have a narrative? Did they have an outline of what, you know, the stories they wanted to tell? I think
It felt very lazy and rushed.
Yeah, I would totally agree.
So episode 3, Crocodile, this is a woman confronted by a guy threatening to make amends with the family of a biker that they killed, they'd knocked down. I don't think that's a spoiler, because I think that's the premise of the story, isn't it?
It definitely sets the story in motion.
And there is a lot more to come after that.
Yeah.
Again, I think one of the weaker episodes, which is a shame because I think it started really promisingly. The first half an hour, I was really engaged and I thought this is really going to go somewhere, and it was really disturbing. It became more disturbing as the episode went on. But then for that reason, I think it became too samey again, and it was too disturbing just for the sake of being disturbing.
Although I quite like Crocodile a bit more than Arcangel. I mean, basically, the main character of this episode is a stone cold killer.
Yeah.
I think by accident, but the choices that she makes in the story are, you know, basically of serial killer thinking.
She's
really.
a complete psychopath.
Yeah. And, you know, has a normal job and everything, and doesn't, you know, well, there comes a point where she falls into these killings as by accident, really. And you quite feel for her in the beginning, but by the end, she's doing some really calculated stuff, and you're just like, yeah, you're a bit of a serial killer.
Yeah. It's a story that overlaps as well, isn't it? Because you see the tragedy at the beginning, but then there's another tragedy that's written into the storyline, which she gets involved with because she sees a guy being knocked over by a truck.
By a very awesome pizza delivery. Pizza delivery truck, yeah.
But again, this is all to do with CCTV and that whole idea of CCTV and cameras watching you. There's a woman who is running a company.
She works for an insurance company.
Yeah, insurance company.
So she's investigating insurance claims, and they have this kind of weird piece of technology where they can tap into what you saw or your memories, and, you know, it all just kind of comes up on this monitor, which is a bit, a little unbelievable.
Yeah, the closing moments with the guinea pig. Won't say anything, but let's just say guinea pig.
Yeah.
Oh, really? Please.
I can see why you were upset with that. Yeah. I would say if you're enjoying Black Mirror and you watch the first couple of episodes, stick with it, though. I mean, is telling you an interesting story. The serial killer aspect of it kind of hooked me on that episode.
Yeah, but just doesn't feel original anymore, which is a shame because I love Black Mirror, and the previous episodes I've really enjoyed. But this one, not so much, unfortunately.
Well, I think what Black Mirror is definitely missing this season is that really feel-good episode, like San Junipero from season 3. Like,
how amazing was that last year?
That won so many awards, just that
Yeah.
singular episode on itself. And, combined with episodes like Nosedive, Black Mirror is really setting itself up to be a really noteworthy piece of intelligent television, where I think they might have rushed it a bit, season 3.
I agree.
I mean, season 4,
Yeah.
this go-around. It just felt like very mediocre storytelling. Still captivating, still watchable, and still, on brand for Black Mirror, but I just think they knocked it out of the park with season 3 and just kind of, played a very average game for season 4.
It's interesting you mentioned San Junipero because I thought that was the best episode last season. There is an episode in this season which I think is trying to emulate that episode, which we'll talk about on the next video.
Ooh, looking forward to it.
Yeah. What a cliffhanger. We are Boys on Film. Thank you very much for watching. Don't forget to check us out online at eqmusicblog.com and filmariot.net, and we'll be back with a new review, the follow-up to this review of Black Mirror for the second part, so join us then.